This is Sean, our technology. I'm telling the listeners who's talking, so they can blame. They can blame Sean.
Talking to ourselves. Oh, yeah. Hold on, that wasn't going out live before?
Good stuff. All our good stuff.
So they missed our whole beans and weenies conversation?
Starving college meals?
Yes.
All right, we'll save those for another time.
Yes, we will. And they missed the Saban beans and weenies story. Goodness gracious. So, oh man, they missed all conversation about the Dolphins, a decade or two of dysfunction. Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah, if you're interested in having a question asked on answered on the show, we're going to take a couple of X's and Omar's overtime questions at the end. Hopefully we run through the script quickly. You never know, and then so drop them in the live chat or on the post that I said to drop it on. I'll find it and go to that one so we can answer some live questions for everybody who is watching live. We appreciate you guys. We have been doing some amazing numbers live during this coaching search, continued extra innings of X's and Omar. We will keep going until we have a coach. Now, we don't know how long that's going to take, considering there are 9 vacancies out there right now. This too shall pass, Dave, as we say.
Have they interviewed you yet, Omar?
No.
They're interviewing a lot of people.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. So we're ready? And both I and Dave look fine? I look sexy? Okay. That's important. Dave always looks sexy. You ready? Let's count down. We saw an amazing foursome of NFL playoff games last weekend, and the final act was just magnificent. It was a showcase of what the AFC's future looked like. Patrick Mahomes, who has led the Chiefs to the last 2 Super Bowls, had a shootout with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. It looked like Marino versus Jim Kelly, where this was a game where 22 points were scored in the game's final 2 minutes of regulations before the Chiefs walked away with a 42-36 overtime win, Dave. A lot of chatter about all the overtime rules and how it needs to be changed. They've changed overtime rules about 4 times already. I just don't know why they don't go to college, the Texas tiebreaker that college uses, which I love personally. But Dave, that game was amazing. No doubt it was the best game that I have ever seen. People will bring up the Chargers Dolphins from 1982, and my rebuttal would be, I was 5. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Best game of my lifetime. How about you?
I mean, it was a great game. It was, I'm going to throw in recency bias. Okay. You can go back. The Dolphins won a game in Kansas City in '72. Now I wasn't around to watch, I was growing up in Ohio at the time, but that's considered it was called the longest game ever. Dolphins won in overtime. There were 14 Hall of Fame players in the game, both coaches. I mean, the concert was Christmas Day, the first NFL game on Christmas Day. won in an overtime, and dramatic back and forth.
I would love to see that on NFL Network.
You can probably find it on, I don't know, YouTube these days. I guess you could try.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL Network loses an opportunity when they have games like just last week, and then people are having this conversation. Is it the greatest game of our lifetime? I'm sorry, you've got nothing on TV at night. Give us the top five. Give us a showdown of the greatest.
But you don't want to watch the whole game from 1972. You'd
Okay,
want to watch. Give me a 15-minute, 10-minute highlights, right? I mean,
okay, do the Game Pass 30-minute version of it.
It was a great game. It was a great game. And, my takeaway beyond the quarterbacks, which we'll get to, was what's happened to the coaching in the NFL? Sean McDermott, 13 seconds left. You're kicking off. You win that game. I don't care how good Patrick Mahomes is. You blew that game. I mean, you got perfect quarterback.
Hold on. The Chiefs have arguably the best trio in NFL history in Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill. All future Hall of Fame.
NFL history? Your recency bias is going off the charts here.
Hold on, wait. Name me three better.
I'll just go to off the top of my head: Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin.
Nope. Nope. Sorry, Michael Irvin. I don't think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, was he?
I don't know. I mean, but
these are all three first ballot guys. So, I mean, you got to be all three first ballot guys.
I'm sure those three were all three first ballot Hall of Famers: Aikman, Emmitt Smith.
I'm not sure Irvin made it in first ballot. I'm gonna look it up while we do the show.
I mean, you can come up with others, I'm sure, just off the top of my head. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig.
See, but everybody said Roger Craig.
Roger Craig wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Roger Craig is the weak link of that trio right there. So there is no weak link to the Chiefs trio. The weakest link might be Patrick Mahomes.
Well, here's my point, Omar. 13 seconds, you're kicking off, you win that game. What are the odds of any team? I don't care how good they are. If you just do your job, the coaching at the end of that game was awful by the Bills. That's something that'll haunt Sean McDermott for the rest of his career. Himself, not the rest of us, obviously, but
Irvin was a first ballot Hall of Famer. My apologies.
Oh, Irvin, of course he was. Yeah, that one. I mean, Michael Irvin's legendary. He would practice in flak jackets to make it harder. I mean, he was crazy. So, anyways, let's get back to that game. How
concerned are you that Miami will spend the next decade living in a Tom Brady-like shadow with Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills?
Oh, if I'm the Dolphins, I mean, that was the way you took it down to the studs 3 years ago to rebuild. I mean, that was so they knew it and they still know it. And, let's go through the quarterbacks in the NFL, in the AFC. I mean, the NFC, Rodgers and Brady are older. Matthew Stafford even is, 10-year plus veteran. In the AFC, the two best quarterbacks are Mahomes and Allen, 25 and 26. Then you got youngsters like Joe Burrow's in the AFC Championship game this year with an awful organization, and Justin Herbert with the Chargers, who has an awful organization.
And you're forgetting Lamar Jackson?
I was going to say, and then we've not even talking the MVP of the league a couple years ago, whose team was decimated by injury this year. There's your five playoff teams, barring injuries next year. So you're playing for 6 and 7, and just to tell yourself you had a good year, you're not playing for anything important. I mean, that's just the facts.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. When we get to the Aaron Rodgers possibly playing his last game in Green Bay after Jimmy G, my guy Jimmy G, and the San Francisco 49ers beats him again. Now Garoppolo's one game away from leading a physical 49ers team to their second Super Bowl. You already know that I'm a big 49ers style fan. That's how I would build my team if I was the GM of an organization. Maybe Mike McDaniel, as its leader, can do that here and get the Dolphins to the AFC Championship game. Dave, do you believe in the 49ers style? In playoff football, Dave, playoff football.
Well, let's put it this way, Omar. My blueprint isn't to get a mediocre quarterback who can have a good game or a bad game, make good throws or bad throws, okay?
Average quarterback. He's not mediocre, Dave.
Well, what's the difference between average and mediocre? That's the definition, isn't it?
Mediocre is Chad Henne, average is Ryan Tannehill. There is a difference.
We're quibbling over words. Okay, the model to win in the playoffs isn't have a blocked field goal, have a blocked punt for a touchdown, and mediocre play from the quarterback. I get what everybody's saying. If you don't have the elite quarterback, then you have to build elsewhere. You have to build a great defensive line, which San Francisco has. You have to have a couple fascinating pieces on offense, like Deebo Samuel, like they have. Okay, but that's the only reason that's the model is you can't do it the other way. You don't have the elite quarterback. Okay, if you have the elite quarterback, you still want all those other pieces, but you have the elite quarterback. So I mean, I get that. Hey, everybody's saying you don't have to have an elite quarterback. Well, I get it, you don't, but that's not the way you go into the blueprint saying, let's just get a average quarterback.
But it can still win games. And the 49ers are the perfect example that if you are good on special teams, you can run the football, you can play good defense, you have playmakers, you have a run game, you can win, baby. You can take it all the way to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not picking them to win the Super Bowl, or to get to the Super Bowl, because I think the Rams are a stacked team that play a similar style and brand and have a better quarterback. But I'm telling you, it shouldn't be overlooked. Alex has our first question. How does Miami get out of mediocrity and get into the areas Kansas City and Buffalo are in? Because Miami's clearly light years away.
Well, you know the short answer here, right, Alex?
Hold on. Am I the only one who can't hear? This is. We can't hear Hyde right now, but
get a quarterback like them. I mean, now that's easy.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, all right. We missed everything you just said, Dave.
Okay, I mean, the short answer to the question, how do the Dolphins get to where Kansas City and Buffalo is? We all know the short answer, right? You got to have a quarterback like that. That's where they are. I mean, to compete at that level for a sustained run. I'm not saying you can't, have a good year, everything comes together, and you make the playoffs and win a game in the playoffs. But if you're talking a sustained run, you need that guy. I mean, that's just how it is.
So you got to have a Patrick Mahomes. You got to have a Josh Allen. You got to have a Justin Herbert. You got to have a Joe Burrow. You got to have a Lamar Jackson. You got to have a Deshaun Watson.
You got to have someone who in January can go into Kansas City and win a game, or go to Buffalo in December and January and win a game. I mean, that's just the game. You can build it the other way, and maybe the playoffs fall to you as they have to San Francisco this year. But typically, at some point, you're going to be asked to score 30 to 40 points and win playoff games, and you have to have that ability to go that way.
Jim Irsay tweeted it, and it blew up. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, basically said that weekend's game shows you got to be able to score 30 points, and you got to light it up to win in today's NFL, which basically was a smoke signal to, hey, Aaron Rodgers, come holler at your boy. It's and we'll get into Aaron Rodgers a little bit later, but David has
I'll read it, Omar. You can wait a second. Before we go on, I forgot about this. We have some news to break here, and that is Omar was named the Florida Sports Writer of the Year by the National Sports Writers and Sportscasters Association. And so I think we need a virtual standing ovation for Omar for his good work this past year.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm humbled and honored. Okay, next question.
All right.
I'm just trying to get into the South Florida Hall of Fame like Dave Hyde.
Okay, let's go with David.
Is Dave frozen? Okay, let me try. David has our next question. Would having a top tier quarterback put this Dolphins roster in the AFC Championship game? If the answer
having
is no,
a top tier quarterback.
what is Dave back again? If the answer is no, then we're much further away from competing with anyone than anyone wants to admit. And I think our sentiments from the last segment really highlight that. And earlier I responded to a tweet from somebody on Twitter, and it was very revealing because the tweet basically, I recently wrote a column about the lessons that we should have learned from the last 6 Dolphins coaches that we've had since 2005. And there are things that we should take from it, and we'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. But the common thread with the Dolphins quarterbacks since Dave Wannstedt took over is that every single one of them have been working with a mediocre coaching staff. Every single one of them has been working with a lackluster quarterback, nobody you can write home about, from Jay Fiedler to Feely to John Beck, Trent Green, Chad Henne, Chad Pennington, since Marino, was the best quarterback that the Dolphins have had. And you could say whatever you want about the coaches that have come through here from since 2005 on, Culpepper. You can say whatever you want about the coaches that have come through here from 2005 on. The common thread isn't bad coach selection. It's mediocre to lackluster quarterbacks behind center. And until you do that, I've seen some great Dolphins defenses wasted during this decade. I've seen some great Dolphins run games. You saw it with Ricky Williams, wasted during this decade plus. We've seen some great individual talents like Reggie Bush and Brandon Marshall, wasted during this decade plus because mediocre quarterback play. And, I don't know what Tua can be. I think he's an NFL starter, but is he a top 10 quarterback in this league? We'll see based on who the offensive coordinator is. Dave, we're on question 2, which is, we've discussed that a lot. Let's move on to K14ever, who asks, Sean Payton might be available, Dave. What do you think should be the compensation for the recently retired Saints head coach?
Yeah, I'm not even going to go there because this isn't even an option. I mean, let's be honest.
Thank
okay?
you, please.
I mean, let's just close that. Not even open that door. If Sean Payton wanted to coach, he'd be coaching the same. If he wanted to go somewhere else, he'll go to the Cowboys, where he has a relationship where they're ready to win. He's not going to come here unless his only motivation is money. I mean, back the Brinks rug, but this isn't even a realistic conversation.
It's not, because the only thing Steve Ross can offer him is money and power. He can get money from any organization, 32 teams. He names his price, it's his. And he had power with the Saints, and he can get power from any organization.
Well, and let's go here, too. Sean Payton is off, in part, the Bill Parcells tree. Tom Coughlin and Bill Parcells. Bill Parrs left here because he had a falling out with Steve Ross. You think when Sean Payton calls up Steve Ross or Bill Parrs, hey, what's it like to work there? What kind of a recommendation is he going to get? That's the first thing a coach looks at, the owner, okay? And if one of your former good friends had an issue there, I mean, you're going to say, okay, maybe I'll look. So, but it's not even going to get to that point.
Not even that, but your number 2 in Jeff Ireland, who's there.
That's true.
Yeah, it's like, Dolphin fans have been hitting me up even before Sean Payton retired, and I'm like, stop! It's off the table. Everybody in the NFL knows he's going to be coaching the Cowboys in 2023.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, if he wants to coach, exactly.
The minute he says he wants to coach, Jerry Jones is firing whoever's in that seat, and he's putting Sean Payton there. Like, or if Sean Payton doesn't go there, he's going to go to Denver, or he's going to go handpick whichever quarterback he wants and basically Debo the job and the GM job. So let's Dolphin fans, please put it to rest, because it ain't happening. No matter what Steve Ross offers, it ain't happening. Move on.
All right, let us take a look at where the organization has been since 2005, which is when Dave Wannstedt was pushed out and Nick Saban took over. He lasted 2 years before realizing college was the best route for him as a person and coach. Let's go down memory lane, Omar. Oh, ugly memory lane with these coaches, and discuss what we should have learned as a franchise from each selection. Okay, we'll start with Nick Saban and you, Omar. Go ahead.
I still think going for the legend who just so happens to be in college is a good route. And I would support it. If they went after Dabo Swinney and decided to hand Dabo Swinney the Miami Dolphins job, I'd support it. I don't know why Jacksonville isn't going after Dabo Swinney. But the one thing you learn from Nick Saban is these guys have to check their ego at the door, because sometimes in organizations, a player is more important and powerful than an owner. No? You disagree?
Than an owner? You mean than a coach?
Than a coach.
Well, in good organizations, the coach is the leader. He's has the muscle, and he's forms a partnership with his best players.
Okay.
More than.
Are you calling Green Bay a bad organization? Because.
Yeah, I am. Green Bay is not a good organization. When you have Favre and Rodgers for 30 to 35 years and you win 2 titles, I mean, that's not a good organization. When you have Aaron Rodgers and you bring in a first-time coach at the end of his career and look at their playoff, you're only judged by the playoffs, and he's had playoff coaching problems. That's not a good organization. So,
Reid had playoff coaching problems, and he's the GOAT right now.
Okay, but he got to Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
2 Super Bowls in 10 years, and he went to NFC championships regularly, right? I mean,
okay, that's fair.
So I'm just saying that but my problem with Nick Saban is the quarterback. I mean, that's what you learned. You talked to Jason Taylor today. He would tell you he would still be here. He would have been Belichick and Brady if they had taken Drew Brees, and they would compete. And absolutely, he had the system in place. He was a dictator, which I'm all in favor of as an NFL coach. You have to be
4 letters of that words.
You have to be a lion tamer when you're in that locker room. You have to have the ability to push and prod, unless you go the Pete Carroll road. Those are your 2 options. So it's the quarterback. That's what I learned. I mean,
Cam Cameron. What'd you learn from Cam Cameron, Dave?
Don't hire someone who can't do the job. Don't hire somebody incompetent to do the job.
I think the more important lesson is don't hire someone who isn't impressive in an interview. Because they had to interview him twice because he was so unimpressive in the first one, and then when his locker room gets a hold of him, he's unimpressive there as well. So you have to have somebody who can own the room.
I will say this, the real problem there was Wayne Huizenga put a guy named Joe Bailey in charge of the hiring process, a guy who was an administrator in Dallas, brought him here, and he hired, and he'd never done this before. So a lot of times you have to evaluate the evaluator. Okay, who hired Cam Campbell, and what the heck was he thinking? So that was the real problem in the organization that time.
Tony Sparano.
With Tony Sperano, to me, we're back to quarterback again. And I will say this, that organization, while Heisinger brought in Bill Parcells to filter out Cameron and to get somebody who ran a professional organization in Parcells is a Hall of Fame coach. He's not a Hall of Fame manager. He's not a Hall of Fame vice president of drafts and building teams. He is a Hall of Fame coach. And again, you're bringing in you're hiring people above what they're really capable of doing.
I'd hire Parcells right now if he still wanted to work.
Yeah, of course you would, because he sounds great. He's not a,
no.
He never built a roster, Omar. He never built a roster.
With you. I think the roster during Parcells, I don't think the roster's been as good without Parcells as it was with Parcells.
They didn't win a playoff game. So I'm not.
They won a playoff game in 20 years, 21 years.
Well, you're going to compare it to teams that didn't win
You're judging them for not winning a playoff game with Chad Henne as their quarterback. With Chad Henne as their quarterback?
Well, that's part of building a roster.
That's not fair, Dave.
You took the left tackle rather than the quarterback. That's who Bill Parcells is. That's who he is.
All right. But listen, if you would have given him a longer tenure, clearly he walked away with his money and ran off to retire and play golf. And, he was a part-timer here. Let's be honest. But
let's tell why he left. I mean, that's telling too of the organization. There's a sale of the team. Steve Ross takes over. Mike D, a marketing guy, takes, and he wants all the football people to report to him. And Parcells says, what are you doing? This is backed up by 3 or 4 people who were caught in between a split franchise. All of a sudden, they were asked not to report to Parcells, to report to Mike D. And you can't do that. You can't run an organization that way.
Listen, I remember, and this is a story time now. And now X's and Omar's going to run long, and we're going to have to. Listen, I remember being at the 2009 Senior Bowl with Bill Parcells. It was a big deal in Mobile because Bill Parcells never goes to the Senior Bowl. Okay? Never. It's like seeing a ghost at the Senior Bowl.
Who was he looking at?
Stop, Dave. Don't ruin this story with the semantics of the
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He was looking at Pat White because he knew the game of football was evolving, and Pat White was a revolutionary quarterback of spread offenses on the college level, and he wanted to see if it would translate to the NFL. And while the theory and thought process was right, the selection was wrong. If Pat White was Lamar Jackson, it would have worked. But Pat White wasn't Lamar Jackson. Yes, you're ruining the story. But I remember being there, and when ownership changes, he's got this opt-out. He can walk away with $16 million, no questions asked. And he's basically off the record. He's like, why shouldn't I take it? Like, sit here and do all this and be second guessed. I could just walk away with $16 million. And he stayed, Dave. Despite all what you want to say and the Mike D and all, come on, man. Nobody was answering no Mike D. No, everybody knew that Bill Parcells was the big man in the organization and made all the decisions. They didn't even pay attention to Steve Ross. Steve Ross sat down and was quiet when Bill Parcells was in the room. That's
why Bill Parcells left. You're right. He said, hey, well, I don't have to put up with this. I can take my money. But his point was, I'm not going to work in this stupid organization where everybody's being asked to not report to me, where I don't have control. And these employees are being.
He never once lost control.
Okay. Well,
he never once lost control. Nobody ever, not Jeff Ireland, not Tony Sperano, ever answered to Mike D. Now,
I'm not going
Parcells.
to get into names, but there were, because I don't want to get people in trouble. They don't want to be out there. But there were people whose careers were torn because you have the owner's boy saying, report to me, and you have the holdover who knows how long he's going to be here saying, report to him. Now, most of them still did report to Bill Parcells because that's the way an organization should be run. But that's where problems started.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, there were problems. Let's run through these really quickly.
Yeah,
Joe Philbin. What did we learn from Joe Philbin, Dave?
Don't put a guy who can't command a room in front of the room.
Excellent. We'll move on from there because that's exactly what it was. That team quit on him in 2015 before they even began the season. They're like, that guy's coming back? Oh, man. Adam Gase. This is what the interesting thing about Adam Gase is people don't put the respect on Adam Gase's tenure as much as they should because it failed in the Jets. But think about this. Adam Gase played 25 games with a backup quarterback during his tenure here. And I don't think his staff was that bad. Now, Adam Gase, the one thing I liked about him is Adam Gase can work a room. Adam Gase can get players to buy in. Now, as he continuously threw you under the bus, you eventually realize, man, I can't trust this guy. And eventually that's how you lost the locker room. But he's got a good salesmanship ability.
Yeah, I'll real quick that the Adam Gase lesson was don't hire a guy as a head coach who only wants to coach half the team. All he cared about was the offense. I mean, that's it. And the signature moment to me, I said, oh, this is done, when he benched Rashad Jones. And he didn't tell Rashad Jones. He didn't talk to Rashad Jones. And Rashad Jones threw a fit that game. That should have been handled by the head coach before the game.
Did he really bench Rashad, or did the defensive coordinator bench Rashad?
Well, the point was he's the head coach. If the defense
just didn't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian Flores. Now I'm curious here with you, Omar. What's the lesson from Brian Flores?
Funny. I was at Waffle House. Story time again. I was at Waffle House this morning. A guy recognized me as a fan, comes, sits at my table, and we had a great conversation. And he was African-American guy, and he was upset. The Dolphins fired Brian Flores. And Brian Flores is the one coach that's been here who we clearly know can coach. And it's true. He can coach. But I sat there and I asked him some qualifying questions, okay? If you know your general manager is probably the meekest personality in the NFL, and everybody gets along with him. Everybody in the world gets along with him because he has no ego. He's a nice guy, except for your head coach. And what about those people who you say, man, if people don't get along with this guy, something is wrong with you. Like if you don't get along with that guy, something is wrong with you. And you could say whatever you want about their relationship. But now he has a problem with Grier. Okay. Now he has a problem with Tua. Okay. Now he has a problem with Ross. Okay. Now he has a problem with his coordinators. And he has a problem with his assistants. Okay. What's the common thread?
I'll tell you the common thread. His standards are up here. His standards are up here. And I agree. He's an abrasive personality. But the question then becomes, okay, where's everybody else's standards in the organization?
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, to me, the lesson with Brian Flores, though, is make sure the guy you're hiring on one side, again, can put a staff together on the other side. And that's the football issue to me. He was very fireable for that. I mean, if you want to fire that, fire him for that.
Absolutely. And I know that a contributing factor was he couldn't hire an offensive staff to coach this team. And he didn't want to coach Tua, which, it is what it is. Margarita asked, what's the objective of some of the local writers who keep the Tua has a weak arm narrative alive, Dave?
The truth. I mean, I hate it when people say, oh, you're doing this for clicks. You have a motive for this.
Yeah.
I lost my connection again. Am I back? Okay. I I hate it when people go to like there's some conspiracy theory out there. Okay.
Yes.
A lot of times we're writing either what we see or what we think. Now you can disagree. You didn't like it, whatever. But you know,
Yeah.
he doesn't have a strong arm. He does not have a strong
He
arm.
doesn't. It's
Now,
not
can he
debatable.
get beyond that? Maybe.
It's not debatable. The first time, and you know, I'm a big Tua advocate. I was driving the train, tank for Tua, the first time in training camp in 2019, 2020 that I see him. My first reaction, and I made it public, was it's not the arm I expected. And
Yeah.
I know and have done research and I'm looking into it. The hip is what you throw with. The hip is velocity. It's not the arm. This guy suffered a potentially career-ending hip injury, and it's still healing. And maybe this year it heals more, and maybe he gets a little bit more. You can go watch his film in Alabama. The arm was stronger there. It's not where it needs to be. It's probably at 70% where it once was. And his trainer and Tua and everybody and their mama and Tuanon can argue and say, oh, look at the 53-yard pass. It's not about the arc throws. His arc throws are just fine. It's about, can he throw it with zip onto the sidelines and the boundaries? Otherwise, cornerbacks jump his routes and he throws pick sixes or you have to take those plays out of the playbook and it limits your playbook. Is Tua Chad Pennington, Drew Brees, arm-esque right now? Yes. Can you win with it? Yes. But he's probably in the bottom third tier of arms in the NFL. And it's just borderline. It's not good. But he wins with accuracy, anticipation, pocket presence. And he's an efficient quarterback with those three. If he had an arm, he'd be elite. But he doesn't. So there we are.
All right, our next one comes from Flex Luther. I see what he did with the name there, but outside of presumably making Tua's situation work in year 3, what's the most important job for the incoming coach to do with this roster, and which of the candidates do you believe is best suited to do it?
Woo! Yes, Tua is the most important aspect of the job, or fixing the offense, fixing the quarterback. I think that personally starts with the offensive line. You know how I feel, Dave. We've been doing this show for.
I think everybody's with you, Omar, on this one.
Finally, everybody's with me. Finally,
this
everybody.
An outlier issue.
Yeah, finally, everybody's with me. Building a running game, fixing the offensive line, getting to us. The offense, as we've discussed previously, there are 3 pieces worth saving, salvageable pieces on the offense?
Well, here's and I'll get back to this. I want a real line coach in here to say who is salvageable. I cannot believe all these guys are insalvageable. When I look at how other lines are constructed with, the replacement
Billy Turner's out there
all
starting.
that. So yeah, you need someone in here who is capable of
you need a master of offensive line. You need $1 million a year offensive line coach. No question. And I don't think if you're the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins and you go to Steve Ross and say, hey, Steve, I need $1 million to go land the best offensive line in the NFL, Steve will probably say, I'll give you $1 million too. Make sure it's done. And
the best guy out there probably is Mike Munchak of Denver, who has a history of building offensive lines. And, he wants a head coaching job probably. I don't hear his name at all in that mix, though. So throw money at him, throw money at him.
Assistant head coach. Yeah, definitely. I'm all aboard with you, Dave. Alex has a rare opportunity of a second X's and Omar question. Alex is right now, he's pushing for the crown of X and Omar question askers. What makes a good coaching staff in the NFL, Dave?
Well, let's talk about what's made bad ones here, and you'll get your answer. Okay, Brian Flores came in as a defensive coach. Okay, that's his background. So
And he
I
hired
get
Jim Caldwell.
yes, and that was okay. I remember writing a column saying this is the exact guy they need, an old veteran who probably has no ego and a good person and an offensive background. Okay, and he was out the door for health reasons or whatever
Allegedly.
within the span of by that first summer. Okay, and so
He saw what was going on here. He was like, I'm out the first thing smoking.
okay, so you saw what happened on the offense. And I'm not, to a side, we're talking 3 offensive coordinators. The offensive line coach fired 4 days in, et cetera, constant turnover, not know who was going to call plays this year, where did it come. So the first thing to do, if your strength is one side, you need someone just as talented as, and you go to Adam Gase, same thing. There were issues on the other side. I mean, there has to be some balance of knowledge. And Brian Flores touted himself as coaching everybody, and he did. He just didn't coach the offense well.
Well, Adam Gase, and I think I hate when you say that about Adam Gase because he hired Vance Joseph, and that defense was pretty good.
Yeah, his year worked in 2016.
Yeah, that defense carried them to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, and then Vance became a head coach with the Denver Broncos, and we'll discuss him a little bit later in the show. But for when now we're talking about candidates, Brian Daboll, Vance Joseph, Dan Quinn. I think those are the 3 front runners for the job. And really, to me, people will ask me, "Oh, well, who's your favorite?" My answer will be, "Tell me who their offensive coordinator is or defensive coordinator is," and then I'll tell you who my favorite is because it's a package deal, and you have to make sure that you have a quality staff. I would say Adam Gase had the last quality staff. I didn't think Brian Flores' staff was quality, and I still would argue to you that it was not quality. Brian Flores hired who he could hire, who would work for him. And they're young, developmental guys that he wants to develop. Well, I'm sorry, but you need some graybeards on your staff. I'm curious who Dan Quinn is proposing as offense coordinator. I think he's going to go to Denver. Vance Joseph. Who is Vance Joseph proposing as his offensive coordinator? Vance Joseph's tenure in Denver failed because he had Case Keenum as his quarterback. He didn't have a very good quarterback situation. Not to say it's going to be drastically improved here, but what's suppose a Vance Joseph comes with a Jim Caldwell? What's suppose Jim, who has relationships with the front office figures here in Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie and Chris Grier, what's suppose he says, I'll come back now that that guy isn't here with his massive ego, and I'd love to work with Vance. Now you're telling me Vance Joseph, Jim Caldwell package doesn't intrigue you? Like Dolphin fans want to poo-poo Vance Joseph. The one thing that I will say about Vance Joseph, and he sucked in Denver. I thought he got the job ahead of time, ahead of when he was ready for it. But when he was here, and even when he was there in Denver, he was a leader of men. And that's the number one thing I'm looking for in a head coach. Now, can you put together a staff? To me, it's got to be a leader of men who can put together a staff.
Yeah, I think we've gone over this. I'm not. The question. Let's look at Steve Ross when he hired Philbin. The reason he liked him was he was organized. Okay, that's nice, but it's not. Shouldn't be your 1 or 2 to 3 qualities.
Make your librarian. You make him your librarian.
When they hired Adam Gase, it was because he was a young rising talent. They thought in the league. But look, he made his bones off Peyton Manning a lot. Right. And so, you got to look at, and the Dolphins just haven't been good at hiring people. Okay. But how about Vance Joseph, head coach, and he hires a guy who's back in town now and looking for a job, Adam Gase as his offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Funny.
All right. Our next question comes from Andrew. Will Chris Grier continue his role as GM? Will him continue in his role as GM hurt our chances at landing a top-tier head coach?
it doesn't help, but it doesn't really drastically hinder based on what I'm hearing. Most people are like, okay, well, I get this job, then, who's going to be my next GM? And yeah, that's why it's not one of the top tier jobs. But then you can say the same thing about Jacksonville. You can say the same. The only teams that are doing it right are the teams that are doing it together, which is Minnesota, Chicago, the Giants, and Oakland. If Oakland's doing it right, because we don't know. But this stuff gets a little bit weird, and people, want to talk about people that they don't know and they don't have exposure to, or don't have the ability to talk to people and find out the inside intel. The Dolphins have all of that, all of it. Dolphins are super connected. They got all of it. And if you can't get the intel on these guys that I've been able to get and make the right selection, you're lost. You're lost as a franchise. And it doesn't matter who your GM is. You're just going to keep doing the same dumb stuff all the time, which we've been doing.
All right. Bendall 211 asks, what is it about winning 10 games in a season that makes coaches in Miami think they're Tony Montana? Good reference. That was Adam Gase and Brian Flores. Is it Grier's laid-back approach or a young coach getting caught up in it?
Well, let's get to Tony Sparano, who was 11-5 in his first year. Why not us? You remember that year, Dave? Why not us?
I do.
They were riding the coattails of Chad Pennington, and then the Chad Pennington gets hurt, the wheels fall off, hand the team to Chad Henne, 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, blah blah blah. But I don't think Tony ever got his ego too big, and when he did start to battle with management was because management tried to shank him in the side. And was in a private plane trying to hire Harbaugh. It is what it is. Let's not revisit history. If you're on a plane with Kathy, going to go hire the next great columnist, Dave, I'm not going to be in my feelings and feeling all sad and pouty about myself.
Well, every other position is up for grabs in an organization. Every position. So why not the coach too? If you can go out and replace him but the problem is they didn't replace him. They didn't replace him. That was the problem.
I think they taught Sparano and Ireland, that whole Parcells regime. They had mob mentality, and let's be real about it. They acted like the mob, and in the mob, loyalty is important, Dave.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
And when that loyalty was broken, woo, it was over. But Gase, coaches, Gase and Flores, they both wanted what they wanted. And I'm very uncomfortable saying that a coach shouldn't get what he wants. Because if you talk to Chris Grier has said, I'm going to give the coach what he wants to win and needs to win. That's my job. That's what he views as his job. Now, what I dislike and find disappointing and disrespectful is Flores in his camp putting it out there, and they put this on wax, that he never liked Tua, never wanted Tua, never supported Tua, wanted Herbert, blah 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 blah. Okay, revisionist history. Because if Brian Flores had ever once said to him, I said to Chris Grier, I don't want Tua, I want Justin Herbert, what do you think would have happened, Dave?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we both agree with that if because of Flores' strong personality, and he would have put his foot down, and if he wanted
Flores' strong personality and Chris Grier's meek personality.
Yeah, if he wanted Justin Herbert, he would have had Justin Herbert. So, but I will say there's an issue here that is repetitive in that both Gase and Flores not only wanted more say in personnel after their first year, they both got it. They both were allowed to call more shots after their
and so will the next coach, because Chris Grier is going to give it up.
And that's just wrong. That's not the way a good organization can work. I mean, Adam Gase made personnel and contractual decisions after his first year that hurt the team. and Brian Flores, the personnel never got solved on offense. Okay, now that's something that Steve Ross has to fix. That when you said before, the people interviewing here are okay because with Chris Grier, because they'll say, well, who's going to be the next GM? They're misreading the situation. They don't understand who the survivor is in this organization.
But that's how he survived, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not gonna survive much longer. I think he's going to be forced to be more forceful and be a boss, and we'll see how that goes. But you're right. That's the exact reason he survived 20 years. Dennis Hickey actually wanted to fire him. It was told to me Dennis Hickey wanted to fire him. Somebody talked him out of it and regretted it because he felt like Grier stabbed him in the back after he allowed him to keep his job.
Well, we did this, I think, last week or the week before, that the communication and collaboration issues of Flores that were used to explain his firing, that's been going on here for 13 years since Steve Ross has been here. Every regime has had problems. So
yeah, remember the press conference for Flores? The end of dysfunction is done. Remember that? Like,
I remember
that.
2016, maybe it was. Yeah.
No. That was for Flores. That was 2019.
Oh, when Chris Grier took over, he said the dysfunction is over. Back in 2000, before Flores.
The dysfunction is always over, yet it always continues to remain. All right, let's get in from Russell's question, which asks, will hiring Vance Joseph as a head coach help achieve the goal Ross had set out after firing Flores? Can he build a solid staff? Answer to that question is, we don't know.
We don't know. I mean, that's why there's so many unknowns when people say they like this coach or that coach, or I don't get into that game because tell me who his staff is. Tell me, can he command a room? I mean, can he have a vision of, okay, here's who I am as a coach?
Yeah.
Or is he still trying to figure that? I mean, there's so many unknowns in a lot of these.
Perfect example of what you're talking about from people that I've talked to. I've done my scouting report on all these coaches. Mike McDaniel is an offensive genius. He does not call plays in the 49ers offense, but he's the mastermind of what's being built. Now, the problem is, great guy, great personality, doesn't command a room. So that says, is he a leader of men? We don't know that. Now, you got to hire him to find out.
Yeah, I look, he is the analytical choice. He's the people's choice, and I get it. I get it.
Analytics are the people now?
Well, I mean, he's the analytic person's choice. Okay, but
I'll run for the hills.
Yeah, I get it. Be a fun, nerdy, mathematical talks with him, but okay, can he lead that room? You got to be a lion tamer, like I said.
Right.
Can they do that? Can they do that with a good roster of egos?
And they'll listen to you if they're winning, but the minute they're not winning, you got to be able to tame those lions.
Well, even when they're winning, are they going to be? Then human nature takes over. Oh, I don't need to work as hard, or I want more money. I want more of this. I want a bigger role.
They always want more money, Dave.
Yeah, everybody does. That's human nature, right? We're not faulting the players, but
Pandemonium 1239 asks our final question for X's and Omars. We are going to take some overtime questions, so do not go anywhere. With the same people searching for another coach, do you feel like we will have the same results again with this hire, Dave?
That's the fear. Yeah, we all know how this is going to be, the process here. It's going to be Steve Ross and Chris Grier and Tom
Garfinkel.
Marino will be the consultant.
Yep. Maybe Nat Moore gets into the equation. Maybe Nat Moore gets into the mix.
Yeah, and they'll sit with the guys. So, look, we've had 13 years of this. So, in some varying roles with the Chris Grier role. Mike Tannenbaum was in there, et cetera. But yeah, that's the fear. They haven't made a good hire in 13 years of Steve Ross. There hasn't been a guy you look to and say, that is a good hire, right? You'd say, well, okay, cross your fingers, hope it plays out. We'll see.
I think you said that with Brian Flores.
Really?
But
no, you didn't know. He's an assistant under Bill Belichick.
Didn't even call defensive plays. You're right.
We didn't know, but you saw, okay, you see the petting. Okay, I see why they're hiring him. Now, will it work out? I don't know.
I have a suggestion, and obviously it's too late for this suggestion. I'm a big advocate for former players, people who knows what it takes. Steve Ross, Tom Garfinkel, neither of them know what it takes to command respect in the locker room. Chris Grier doesn't even know. Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Chris Chambers, Dan Marino. There should be a committee of players, former players that you respect. And I throw in somebody who handles a media wrangler, like a Jason Jenkins. There should be a committee of people who sit together on these Zooms, sit with the one-on-one candidates, go through everybody's package and portfolio, and they should sit down. They should talk. They should hear these candidates out. They should all talk about talk over these candidates. And I promise you that the Jason Taylor and the Zach Thomases and the Dan Marinos of the world can end this era of dysfunction, because they know what it looks like. They know what it looks like. Ross does not know what it looks like. Garfinkel does not know what it looks like.
Here's the question. Dan Marino is on those meetings. Does he have a voice? Does he have a voice?
He needs to. He needs to. He needs to. And if he doesn't have a voice, he needs to speak up, because that's the reason why he's in the room.
No, is he listened to if he speaks up? I don't know.
They need to listen. Like, you've hired 6 flops. You need to listen. Have you not realized that you're the reason the process has been bad and the organization has been dysfunctional? At some point, you got to hold up a mirror to yourself. And Steve Ross has done that. And he has said, I am the problem, and I'm going to try to fix it. The problem is, every time he tries to fix it, it doesn't get any better. He gets closer, but it doesn't get any better.
Are they closer?
I think if Grier did not want to work with Flores, and Tua did not want to work with Flores, and Flores was able to actually hire an offensive coordinator or staff, I think that they would have been better. Or maybe they landed Watson and got Watson. Just listen to Flores, who I'm amazed to know now in hindsight that he was the staunch pusher for Watson. Well,
here's a story from the Miami Heat. Okay, just a parallel story though.
Story time.
When they started out and they were expansion team, okay, sort of like the Dolphins were a couple years ago, basically. They made the trades. They got draft picks. Ron Rothstein would come out of games saying, we got to get rid of this player. We got to get rid of this player, because the coach's job is to win. He's under pressure to win. He said, we got to do this to win right now. And the GM's job is to sit back and let them blow off steam and say, okay, now let's sit down and talk how we can develop this talent. Okay. And that, to me, it doesn't surprise me Brian Flores wanted Deshaun Watson. He wanted to win. I got to win right now. I need the better player. The surprise to me here is the GM and the owner went along with that when there was all this other issues with him, with Deshaun Watson. Initially, I was like, yeah, trade for him. But when all these others, why did the GM and owner go along? That's the mystery to me of how this franchise runs. Of course, the coach wanted a proven great quarterback.
Yeah, Dave, let's get into some of these overtime questions, because I'm I'm not optimistic, and I'm not optimistic based on what I hear. And I like some of the candidates, but I know that they're not the top choice for a lot of these candidates. So
that could work out. I mean, there's constant stories of guys who weren't top choices working out. So that doesn't concern me. It's who the guy is and can he do the job is what concerns me.
Kelsey A asked, why not Marvin Lewis, Dave?
Well, first of all, where is Marvin Lewis?
He's actually assistant head coach with Herm Edwards at Arizona State.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear him in the mix for anything. Okay,
because he's black. Let's be real.
Okay. Let's. Here's my real. He was at Cincinnati for 12 years and a good product, but they never won anything. And so
it's Cincinnati.
Okay.
They don't even have a scouting department.
12 years, Omar. 12 years.
He went to the playoffs like 7 times. Never won a game.
Does Marvin Lewis excite you?
Yes, he does. Actually, he does. Because I want somebody Marvin Lewis's coaching tree is better than the Bill Belichick coaching tree. And so that, I don't want to, he's not a candidate. They're not considering him. But, there are 3 guys who should be candidates that aren't candidates for this job. And I just keep it moving because, hey, whatever. Do you think Tua can be successful without big body wide receivers, Dave?
No, I mean, but let's take a wide angle lens. Everybody needs a big wide receiver. Okay, I mean, maybe Tua a little more because you're going to have to throw it up for grabs at some his arm. But look, you need everything on offense. You need a good running back who can, and then a third down running back who can receive. You need a tight end you can trust. You need a big wide receiver and a stretch the field wide receiver. I mean, let's not limit this to Tua in that standpoint. A good offense needs all those players.
Ty from the Bronx, Dave asks, when are they going to get a 1,500 to 1,800 yard back, Dave?
1,500. Well, let me look at the NFL the leaders right now.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot in today's NFL. But yes, when are they going to get serious about this running game?
Well, I mean the answer there is, first of all, let's fix the offensive line, and then the adjoining answer is, look at this year. Duke Johnson came in and ran for over a yard more than Myles Gaskin before him. They go to Tennessee. They play that Foreman, Dante Foreman.
Yeah.
He ran over.
Unemployed.
They just signed him a month earlier. They signed him. He was there, Duke Johnson. You can find backs, fix the offensive line, then we'll talk about the running game.
Good.
Omar, take off. Okay. Well, I think we've about done our share of overtime, regular time. Omar's back.
I'm back. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Let's get word of mouth. Get Devontae Adams and ship Parker out. Let's start with this. Devontae Adams is going to get the franchise tag. There's no way Green Bay is going to let him escape. So,
why would he come here? I mean, let's have some realistic expectations. Okay. I mean, seriously.
Unless Aaron Rodgers comes here.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Then that would be the answer. Why would he come here? Because
as I wrote in month 1 of the season,
you did.
I'm backing a Brinks trumpet, Aaron Rodgers. I say, you name your GM, you name your head coach, you name whatever you want, you name your price, it's yours. And I hope that's what this stalled head coaching search is for. Because, that kind of conversations are had all the time. Like, the Giants already have a coach. Like, Denver already has a coach. We're just playing this stuff out. And then when the Scheftlers of the world tweet it out, eventually it's when it's been cleared to be told to the masses. Aaron Rodgers is shopping for a team right now. And, Indianapolis is bidding, Tennessee is bidding, maybe Tampa is bidding, depending on what.
Denver is bidding.
Denver is bidding. Like let's be real about what the NFL process is. And maybe the Dolphins are bidding and they say, hey, Aaron, you come here, you set your price, you name your GM, you name your head coach, whatever you want. We got $74 million of cap space. If I'm Steve Ross, that's what I would be doing right now.
What do you think the odds of that happening, of him coming here?
Depends if he's like Aaron Rod, if he's like Tom Brady and wants power and influence. Yeah, it's 15%. Depends. If he wants to show you, and this era of NFL players are trying to be like the LeBron era of basketball players.
Well, only a few are. I mean, the Tom Brady.
Only the few that have the power, the Russell Wilsons, the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's. Yes. You're saying only a few, you're correct. Yeah. But those few deserve it.
The mystery to me, and we've talked about Green Bay's organization, why wouldn't you trust him? Why in Seattle wouldn't you trust Russell Wilson? These guys they're in the middle of it. Why wouldn't you listen to them?
They're headed to a divorce. Relationships don't last forever, Dave.
Why would you hire a first-time head coach if you're Green Bay that your quarterback is like, I'm not sure? No, no, don't do that. That makes no sense.
Dave.
Have we gone through it all, Omar?
No, there's more. How come no one looks at special teams coaches for head coaches? The Baltimore Ravens hired a special teams coach. The Houston Texans just hired a special teams coach. It's a good question. To me, they are leaders of men. They lead the entire room. I am just looking for a leader of men. John Harbaugh, when he was hired, story time again, Dave. John Harbaugh, when he was hired, don't know him from Adam, know who his brother is, but I'm at the owners meeting and I see him. This is before he even coached an NFL game. Some radio guy had dogged him. Some radio guy who was working remotely there at the owners meeting in Palm Beach had dogged him on radio supposedly. And it had after he got off the air with the guy, and it had gotten back to Harbaugh. And I am standing there as he goes to check the guy. And oh my God, did he pull out that guy's spleen. And I said to myself, I'd play for that guy. He's going to be successul. And
because he went after a radio guy?
And just how he read him.
How he carried himself.
Absolutely. And I said, this guy's going to be successful. Didn't know him from Adam. And there is a certain aura. Vance Joseph has that too. There's a charisma about how he carries himself. There's a persona. And I'm not talking up Vance for the job. The players want Vance to get the job, at least those that know him, because they know that they need a leader. But they worry about the offense and they worry about all this other stuff. But they know, hey, we need a leader of men. Vance is that. And that's what I want. I want a leader of men who can hire a good staff. And a lot of times special teams coaches are leaders of men. But can they hire the good staff?
The New York Giants just hired a special team coach a few years ago, Joe Judge. The question's right. And the answer is simple, because it's not sexy to when you have the rising offensive mind, we can sell that. When you have a great defensive mind, we can sell that. It's hard to sell a special teams coach. So, I mean, that's the short answer there.
Yeah. I think that we are done. I appreciate everybody who watched. We took it an extra 15 minutes. Sorry for the technical difficulties. As you know, X's and Omars comes to you just about every Wednesday, especially since we're still searching for a coach. And I expect we'll be here next Wednesday too, Dave.
Really? You think it's going to keep going on and on?
I mean, even if they do name a coach, yes, I do think it's going to keep going on and on. I sense not only are they not in a rush, but the entire NFL is not in a rush. And I think it has I think it has a lot to do with the quarterbacks that are out there kind of calling the shot. Like, here's my thing. Let's suppose Dan Quinn is promising Russell Wilson, who he worked with in Seattle. Well, doesn't that shift your mind, opinion, thought process a little bit?
Well, it also is, people are waiting to see what Aaron Rodgers does. Where's he's going to land, maybe?
But I don't think it's just him. I think it's.
No, I know. There's a lot of moving parts out here right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's the Tom Brady moving part. There's the Russell Wilson moving part. There's the Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers is the number one moving part. And all of these teams, they're like, we're just sitting back waiting to see what happens right now. And, it'll be interesting. I don't think it'll go on much longer, but everybody's being patient right now.
It's sort of like a run on running backs in the draft. Once it starts, everybody's going to have to be taking one, or you're going to be left without the guy you want. So,
yeah. I think Daboll is the first domino to fall, though. I do. I think he's going to get the Giants job. Joe Schoen. If it's down to him and Brian Flores, Joe Schoen worked 10 years with Chris Grier. He knows who Chris Grier is. He knows Chris Grier's personality. And he has people inside the Dolphins organization still connected to. So he knows Brian Flores. So if it's down to Daboll, who he worked with in Buffalo, and he knows he needs to fix their quarterback, and Brian Flores, like, come on, bro. Let's not play these games.
He didn't like Tua. Let's see how he likes Daniel Jones then, if that's what you're saying, right?
He's out here packaging Deshaun Watson. It might be Chicago.
Yeah.
He's out here packaging himself as a package deal for Deshaun Watson. If you can handle the allegations and whatever. I mean, just let me say something about that. He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been, like, it's been over a year now, or it's soon going to be over a year now. Like, people, let's put this in perspective. If a lump sum gets paid and there is no legal situation, the NFL is going to package him as a top 5 quarterback in this league and a guy on a redemption trail. Am I wrong?
I like redemption trails among the people who know you. Like, if Houston, to me, I'm all for second chances, third chances, but it should be like in Houston where he gets a second chance, and so, I just have a hard time him coming here, 22 sexual misconduct allegations, and they all must stand up because his lawyers went through each one, and because if they can unravel one and make it look bad, it makes all 22 look bad. Okay, they must all stand up. I just have real trouble making that the face of my franchise. That's just me, But you're right. As soon as he starts throwing touchdowns, that story will go away quicker and quicker.
Well, X's and Omar is here on the Sun Sentinel site. You can find it anywhere you stream your podcast. You can find it on the Sun Sentinel site, usually posted around 4:00. And we look forward to talking to you next Wednesday at noon. Dave, appreciate your time. We will see you next week.